All right. Joining us today, Pirate Radio Live, Coach Mack McCarthy is here with us. Mac, how we doing, man?
I'm good. I'm probably slightly better than you after the football weekend, but I decided, I really wouldn't bring it up until the very first chance I got.
And you did it. Kudos to you. Honestly, I was not like devastated or anything. Part of that is probably how the game went, where I knew at the end of the first half it was over. So
Yeah,
I already put that in my mind. But and I've talked to other Washington fans. We enjoyed the ride. It was
yeah.
awesome. There is a reason to believe that we could maybe get back there and maybe win one in the next few years with the quarterback we have. So I am very optimistic and pleased with how things went, and not as devastated as I thought I'd be losing to the Eagles in the NFC Championship.
Yeah, as you should be. It was an incredible year, and finally feels like things are on the right track in Washington, no matter what their nickname is or their stadium location. But seems like the new ownership and new coaching and new quarterback have all breathed a big, positive vibe there.
And the Eagles are really good. I mean, I've said it all
Yeah.
year. Their roster, just player for player, much better than Washington's and better than anybody in the NFC outside of the Lions, maybe. So they will be representing the NFC on the other side. Guess who? Patrick Mahomes. People have major Chiefs fatigue at this point. Coach Mack, when you watch sports, do you get that fatigue, or can you appreciate greatness and want to see the best continue to win? How do you watch it?
I'd like to think I could do both, but I have on this show talked about my SEC fatigue, and
Yeah.
and that's despite having worked in the league and enjoy the league and respect the league. But that certainly was real. But I don't have as much with Mahomes just because he seems likable. But I'm not heavily invested in the NFL either. If I was one of those other 30+ teams, I probably would have it.
Have you and Mully mentioned this a week or so ago that I need to watch the Patriots documentary on Apple TV? Have you watched that by
I
chance?
have not. I have not.
And I had zero interest in it. Why would I want to relive that? I lived it. It wasn't very fun to me. But I did watch it and talk about being likable. I don't know if this is a Tom Brady production or what, but Tom Brady came out likable. Bill Belichick came out the most unlikable man in the world on that thing. So it was interesting how it was done. But that is the Chiefs kind of trying to, I don't know about topple the dynasty. Patrick Mahomes is trying to topple Brady as the greatest of all time. And I know, shows love to talk about that, but he is on a trajectory, especially if he wins this one, to maybe do that sooner rather than later. It is incredible what he's done since taking over as the starting quarterback for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and we've had this discussion in multiple sports, greatest of all time and, who belongs and who doesn't. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, it is impossible to compare over certain lifetimes. The game was different. Even as recently as a decade ago, 2 decades ago, the whole thing was different. And the other part of that is, why can't we, like you talked about in the opening, why can't you just enjoy the heck out of what you're watching right now?
Yeah, and then it is difficult to do though, right? So, and as
Yeah,
far as the Chiefs go, they are one of the more, people may disagree, but likable, dynasties, dominant teams because
yeah,
I like Andy Reid. I mean,
yeah,
Mahomes doesn't do anything to make you dislike him other than be great. So they've got that going for them, I guess. But
yeah, yeah.
uh, if it was Chiefs, or excuse me, I was pulling for Buffalo. If it was Chiefs, Commanders, Chiefs, Lions, basically anybody but the Eagles, I'd be pulling for the NFC in this game. But I do not want to see Philly win a Super Bowl again. So give me Mahomes next Sunday.
Yeah, I will admit I was kind of pulling for Buffalo because I mean, they're right there, and they went through I wasn't a Buffalo fan back when they kept losing the Super Bowls, but this team's kind of easy to root for them too. I would have been pleased if they had won it, but again, not because I wanted the Chiefs to lose. I just thought maybe it was Buffalo's time.
Who is well, Mac? Who's great that is difficult to root for? I mean, is LeBron? Like LeBron's never done anything wrong either. He
Yeah, I know. I'm not an anti-LeBron guy. I'm trying to
yeah.
think of who in
Like
pro
Michael
sports.
Jordan. I mean, I rooted for Jordan as a kid. So
Yeah, I did. I didn't root against Jordan. I might have rooted against the Bulls as in general, but not against Jordan in particular.
I rooted against.
Rooted against the Pistons. Rooted against
Oh,
the
okay,
Pistons.
that's a good example. Yeah.
Back in the day, way back in the day when I was a kid, I certainly rooted against the Yankees, but even they've become, less objectionable through time because they've had Jeter and Rodriguez and all that.
Well, I was gonna say I rooted against the '90s Yankees mostly because they beat the Braves a couple times in the World Series, but they like Bernie Williams, Derek Jeter, Paul
Yeah.
O'Neill, like they weren't really that hateable. I mean,
No.
especially it took me a while too to watch the Jeter documentary, and he came across as very Kobe and Jordan esque, where he just did whatever it took to win, and it kind of it makes you respect him more when you see stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I just, and it got further away from the Steinbrenner, regime and that kind of thing, and at least they're not in the public view like they were when he was there, and like you said, they had so many likable guys. I stopped taking the Yankees 25 years ago.
even Joe Torre like seemed like a pretty
Yeah.
good guy. So
And you mentioned Andy Reid. He's like, how can you not root for a big fat guy?
it's difficult to do. He's jolly, just like Mac and I. So gotta root for those guys. Mac McCarthy joining us. We'll have a week off of the NFL. I guess they'll have the Pro Bowl games this weekend, and then the Super Bowl, and then the Daytona 500. Coach Mac. So we'll do our driver selection next week.
Okay.
Myself, Jarrett, and you, and we'll put together a little league. We can discuss how the points are going to go. We could just go all wins. We could do how each of our drivers finish. There's a number of ways we can do it, but we'll discuss
Yeah.
that between now and then.
Okay.
But big announcement to make. Yesterday, I was talking to Jarrett, and I like to have a favorite driver. I like to be in a pool, but B have a guy that I want to root for each and every week. And a few years ago, I took Chase Elliott. He won the championship, and I was like, this feels a little too front runnery, even though I picked him before the championship. But like everybody likes Chase Elliott, so I'm gonna pick a different
Yeah.
guy. And I was like, all right, Ryan Blaney looks kind of cool. He looks cool, and then he won a championship, and I never had that connection. So yesterday, I'm talking to Jared. I'm like, all right, I need a guy, a real guy. Who are the Gibbs guys? So I looked at the Gibbs roster, and I found my guy, Coach Mack, and Christopher Bell. I'm going to go Christopher Bell in the 20 as my new guy. And what do you think? What do you think about that selection?
I think he's really good, and he's a racer. He didn't get caught up in all the other stuff. He's not real big on social media other than what he has to do. I think he's a heck of a choice. I like your choice a lot.
I like that style. I'm not a big social media Twitter guy either, so that's great.
You are a
Hey,
big
did you ever
social
get
media.
a parking ticket at ECU?
No, but I had to argue my way out of a few.
Okay, I didn't know until yesterday you can't park what they call the wrong way, which is like if there's two
Oh yeah.
spots that you can't pull to the furthest one. You're not allowed to do that. They call that parking the wrong way, and they gave out a million tickets yesterday at ECU Baseball Media Day.
All right. Hey, times are tough. You got to get some NIL money.
No doubt, and boy, the cars were lined up with yellow paper. It was a sight to see.
If they would
Uh,
enforce parking and speeding, they'd have enough for NIL. They'd win the American every year.
well, Mac, we've won three in a row with that. Maybe they're like, all right, we're doing something here in basketball. Let's get a few more bucks and get a shooter and do something with this thing.
Yeah, that's been impressive. Couple road wins, come home and get you another win against a team that last year won the championship or won the regular season at least. Yeah, all those complainers are jumping back on the bandwagon.
Yeah, well, we'll see how long that lasts. Pirates off this midweek and then go on the road to Temple. Is that right, Bone? Yeah. So ECU going for the season sweep over the Owls,
And
which would be nice.
they've been playing a little bit better too. And what a good time to have in the middle of a 3 game win streak, or right at the end of a 3 game win streak, you have an off week. That you got to feel good. That's a good feeling week. Even though you'd like to keep the momentum going, but as a coach, you better enjoy that.
Well, Jared goes to the press conferences and said Mike Schwartz has been kind of like angry, agitated. So maybe he's like one of they always said Steve Logan was more upset after wins than he was
Yeah.
after losses for some reason. So maybe he's got that. Maybe angry Schwartz is the answer here, Coach Mike.
Hey, whatever works. If that works, be mad all the time.
And I talk about how bad the American is. Jared says no, it's the opposite. Everybody's good. They're beating each other.
No, no,
Do you not want me to
Jared's
keep using your name? I know you're joking about that, Jared. Calm down from behind the camera. Um, Mac, for the first time, I saw this last week, for the first time since the Americans' existence, they have fallen behind Conference USA in like the Ken Palm power rankings. So it's a down year for the AAC.
Yeah, and it isn't like Conference USA is great. Yeah,
No.
and leagues have bad years, but yeah, the American is the opposite of good right now. But hey, we don't care if we're the best of those. That's all
Oh
right.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt. What is the? I hate to do like a should we fire this guy segment, but like what's the long term outlook you think for Penny in Memphis? Like, does he? Do they want to keep him there forever? Would he stay there forever? Do they need to like actually do something in the tournament, make some noise? Like it just feels like this thing. People probably thought it would go better than it has. I would say.
Yeah, I think the amount they invested, in him in particular, and in the program overall, which they've really always done, which is why Memphis has always been kind of a plum job in whatever league they've been in from a basketball perspective. I think they had higher expectations, and I don't know how long. And if he keeps making the tournament, it's hard to get rid of him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, making the tournament's a pretty low bar, in this version of the AAC.
Mack McCarthy joining us. Mac, Jamie misses Coach Mack, as we all do. But he wants a live Coach Mack segment because he loves just peppering you with
Okay.
questions. So
Okay.
today, I went out to Twitter and I said, Jamie, I'm going to take the bull by the horns here. What are your questions for Mac? Send them to me, and I'll pass them along.
All
So
right, let's do it.
we got some Jamie questions here. He said, "Is 4 years enough to give a basketball coach to have success before making a change?" Specifically, asking about Indiana and Woodson floundering with great talent, top 10 NIL in year four.
4 years is enough to determine a trend. You do have to take into account, just the luck of the draw, injuries, that kind of thing. But yeah, 4 years is enough to determine which way the program is headed.
In 2025, is 3 years enough? The way rosters flip, like what? I
Yeah.
mean, like what is the magic number now? You think?
It's a legitimate question because you've seen so many people come in and do it in one year, both in football and basketball, but in particular in basketball. But I still think I'm a little bit old school in that regard. I think 4 is a fair measure for a coach to be judged.
All right. My pick of the day yesterday was Arizona minus the points against Iowa State. All it took was a three-quarter court Hail Mary in the end of regulation to send it to overtime, and then Arizona covers. So easy win. Good call by me. I think Iowa State was third going into that game. But Jamie
Yeah.
asked, who is the third best team, in your opinion, behind Duke and Auburn this year in college basketball?
God, yeah, it could be Iowa State. I really think, though, I honestly think it's Houston.
Oh man, I love them. Love Houston. How
And
about their
they,
game with Kansas the other night?
and when you look at they got 3 losses early, and people kind of wrote them off. But if you watch them the last couple times out, whoa, they have a lot of answers to whatever questions you got.
I've done it 2 years in a row, and I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to have them on my final line in my bracket because I want Kelvin Sampson to win, and I don't know if they have enough firepower to win it all, but they just smother you, and I like watching them play. So I'm gonna go
They've
with.
got some people who can shoot now too. They may have some offense good enough to win the whole thing.
All right, well, they'll be on my final line. I know that. All right, Coach Mack, what is the best game you have called this year? Have you had any fun finishes?
Oh wow! I'm trying to think.
Big individual performances? Anything?
We're almost 35 deep into this thing. I did get to call a rare triple double with the center for Virginia Tech women, a girl named Rose Michaud. That was pretty fun to watch somebody have that kind of dominant performance, and you just don't see many triple doubles across the country on the women's side or the men's side. Um, Gosh, I'm trying to think, but that was more of an individual performance. But and then I saw a great performance by Tania Latson, who's the leading scorer in the country for Florida State. They came into Blacksburg, and Virginia Tech women had won like 20 in a row, and they beat them by like 30, and mostly because Latson had, I think she may have had a career high 38 or something like that. So I've seen some great individual performances, but I haven't had a ton of really exciting games, to be honest.
We were at Overtime Tavern last Thursday. We'll be there this Thursday for sports trivia. Come on out. And a score flashed across the screen. I think Duke was playing somebody in women's basketball, and it was like, I don't know, 70-20 or something like that. And I feel like I see that quite a bit. Like, would you say there are more blowouts typically in women's college than men's, or is it about the same number for both sides?
No, there are more on the women's side. There's still a gap, especially with the great teams, and when they play somebody that's not as competitive, you tend to see some more blowouts. South Carolina's got some 30,
Yeah.
40, 50 point wins and that kind of thing. And there can be some bad matchups, but right now there are still more big blowouts on the women's side than the men's side.
Who contends with South Carolina this year, if anybody?
Well, I mean, they've got some folks to overcome right in their league. They had a great game with LSU the other day. Tennessee gave them all they wanted. Last night. Kentucky is playing well in that league. There's some contenders in their own league. Notre Dame is they might be playing as well as anybody in the country. They had two early losses in a tournament in like the Bahamas or Bermuda or somewhere where they didn't have their starting center. She's back now. They have the best backcourt in the country. UCLA beat South Carolina early in the year, is still unbeaten and is number one. USC is right there in the top five also. But there's probably a pretty short list. Notre Dame, LSU, USC, UCLA are probably the ones that could possibly beat South Carolina.
All right, and Jamie also says it's rivalry week outside of Duke, North Carolina. What are the best games? And I don't know if you've looked ahead, Mac. Tennessee and Kentucky. I think that's tonight. St. Bonaventure, Dayton. That's a great A10 game coming up tonight. Florida, Tennessee is this weekend. Let's see, Mizzou, Mississippi State, Auburn, Ole Miss, one at number 23. So you got some options there. I'm going to change this question a little bit. Texas Tech at Houston will be pretty good. What are some of the college basketball rivalries that are up there with Duke Carolina in 2025? Like, do any come to mind for you?
Well, I mean, this particular year, I'm not so sure Auburn and Alabama are
Yeah.
not the best two teams in the SEC, and the SEC is pretty loaded. Um, Kentucky Louisville was one of those, but not this particular season. Although Louisville is playing way better than everybody expected, and Kentucky may be playing a little bit better than folks expected. Texas A&M went at it the other day, and they're both ranked and having good seasons. But that's probably about where I draw the line at this point.
There was a run in the mid 2000s where Xavier and Cincinnati used to fight
Oh
every
yeah.
year, and
Oh
like
yeah.
I think there was like a time where they didn't even end the game. Like they just like said, "All right, that's enough. We're suspending this or whatever." So I like those fighting rivalries. So that's good. Who when you're at East Carolina does not have a basketball rival. Now I guess you could count UNCW. Maybe those games are fun, and we're
Yeah, I
starting to
think
play
so.
them more. So maybe you count that one, but what was the best rivalry you had at any of your stops? Maybe VCU Richmond or Chattanooga. Who had one? What do you? What's your answer?
Well, VCU Richmond was good. Anytime you're in the same city and you're in the same league, which we were for the whole time I was there. But at Chattanooga, it kept changing because who the contender was in our league changed. When I first got there, it was Chattanooga and Marshall. Then it became Chattanooga and East Tennessee State. Then it became Chattanooga and Davidson. And of course, at Auburn, Alabama was still a big deal, even though we weren't necessarily among the royalty of the SEC of basketball at the time. Although we both got there, and of course, Wimp Sanderson got it going, and Sonny Smith, where I was at with Barkley in person, we got it going too. So it became a really good rivalry instead of just two teams that hated each other just because of the schools.
Was Bob McKillop at Davidson then when you were there, or
He was, and I don't know. I'm not so sure. We might have lost to McKillop once, but I will say this: it was before Curry, so
oh yeah, pre Curry McKillop, yeah.
yeah.
How was your relationship like with the Richmond coach, with the other rivalry coaches? Was it contentious? I mean, Mac, you pretty much seemed to get along with everybody. So, how was that?
Yeah, a guy named Rick Huckabee was at Marshall when I first got there, and we had gotten along. He had been at LSU, I had been at Auburn. We were assistants, so we pretended to hate each other, but we didn't at all. And
Hey,
and then
look, that's a great point. Please do that for the fans' sake, at least.
yeah,
Like, yeah,
we could do that.
Mac hates that guy. Yeah, and then behind the scenes, y'all are having dinner. But yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, we could do that. And then Les Robinson and I, we got along. Les was the guy that
Where
got
was he
along with
at?
everybody. He was at ETSU
And
and got
then the
there.
state coach.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
They
yeah.
used to they used to pick on him the first night of the ACC tournament, the Les Robinson Invitational, because State was always there playing in a bad game.
Yeah, they weren't good when he was at state.
Yeah.
And then McKillop and I had a little something. We had a little something,
All
something,
right.
but it was respectful. But I did have an assistant in the handshake line threaten to take him out back and whoop him, but because he didn't think he was being very respectful. But yeah, we had some wars with them. But at that point in time, we were better, and we won most of those wars. Thank goodness.
Good stuff with Mack McCarthy. Mac, we are getting closer to tournament time, but what you got this week coming up in basketball? You got any games?
Well, I'm going to have Notre Dame, the aforementioned maybe best team in the country. I'm going to have them in Blacksburg on Thursday night. Then I'm going to have SMU, that longtime rival of Virginia Tech,
Oh yeah.
in Blacksburg on Saturday. And then I get the renewal of the Commonwealth Clash. I had Virginia Tech on television in Blacksburg, but I'm going to have them on radio in Charlottesville. And then I get a couple newcomers. I get Cal and some folks down the stretch. But then my big preparation, because I've seen almost everybody in the ACC at this point, my big preparation is for the CAA men's tournament in Washington, D.C., where I get to work with Dave Ryan from CBS Sports, which is always fun.
Yeah, I like Dave Ryan. Ken Watlington will be hoping his Seahawks can cut down the nets there and go to the NCAA tournament. But that should be a fun tournament, Max. So
It should be, yeah, and they actually have they kind of have an upstart in that league, and no reason for anybody to pay attention to it in Greenville, but the fact that William Mary used to be in the old
yeah,
CAA, they hired a guy named Brian Earl from Cornell. His brother is the coach at Chattanooga. Dan Earl was a great player at Penn State, and Brian was a really good player at Princeton. But he has come in, and William and Mary has forever played this Princeton style, patient style, keep the game in the 50s. Now they do just the opposite. They play the fastest of anybody I've seen, and maybe analytically the fastest of anybody in the country. They press on makes, misses, jack up threes. They are so much fun to watch, and they got off to like a 5-0 start, and then I'm not sure if Wilmington or Charleston, one of the two, beat them for their first loss. But Wilmington will be good. Charleston will be good. Towson is good again, and William and Mary trying to become the one of the last teams that's never made the NCAA tournament that has competed in all those seasons.
Good stat. Maybe good for a future edition of Sports Trivia coming your
There you
way.
go.
All right, Mac. Appreciate it, man. Enjoyed the chat. Next week, we'll talk a little more NASCAR, and then maybe we do our draft next week. We'll come up with our format and kind of do a preview. The week
Okay.
after that, we'll do our draft, and then we'll have the 500. So that'll be good.
I'm excited about doing it. Tell Jamie thanks, and we'll see if we can make that happen. The in-person studio deal.
Stay tuned, Jamie. Thank you, Mac. See you, man.
All right.